The fee is huge, isn't it? I don't know the exact numbers, but it's over £70 million. And I had it in my head that it was going to be somewhere around the 50 mark. And I think if you were talking about it as, say, someone like Ajax signing him, you probably expect them to pay about 40, 50 million and him to do well there, and you to go, do you know what? That's a good potential signing. But why has Erik ten Hag felt like it was necessary to pay that money for him, do you think? What do you think he's looking to bring to United, and what's his vision for his role at the club?
Well, the murmurs that are coming out is that I think obviously the coach was quite impatient and he just wanted the deal over the line in the end. There's been a lot of noise around this player for a few months, hasn't it? I know we spoke about him in the pod on a couple of occasions a few months ago now. Obviously, when he made his international debut, and obviously scored that hat trick, and there was a lot kind of attention on him then. Almost a new Højlund, especially with the name as well. It's kind of a bit poetic, really, that we've got two of these players in the Premier League now. One who's obviously a lot more unknown.
Careful, Dave. Don't everyone give him that hype already.
But I just feel as though United, particularly, over the last few years, we know how bad they've been at dragging transfer sagas out, making them sagas when they really shouldn't be. But how careless we've been with fees and splashing money on players when it shouldn't have. We shouldn't have been paying anywhere near the money that we have done. I think we've done a little bit better this summer. We've actually got the players in kind of a little bit quicker. Although it would have been nice to have had a striker in near the start of the window.
Can I interject there that it's easy to get players in quicker if you're willing to massively overpay for all of them, because the selling clubs are happy to snap your hand off for these mad offers?
I don't doubt that we're interested in him, but I do think that the priority was Harry Kane, and it's kind of well known that was the case. I think we've probably been in for both, but the fees that have kind of been bandied about Kane have obviously kind of put us off that path. But I don't think it's an outrageous fee for the talent that he's touted as being obviously a really, really top bracket in terms of kind of potential, especially probably arguably the most difficult position to play and score goals, and which is obviously what he's been brought in to do. I think it's about 65 million up front, and then with obviously add-ons, difficult to achieve add-ons, I think it could take it up to around 75, 80 million. And if it does get up to that, then it's money well spent at the end of the day. But I feel like it's just something we've definitely needed somebody in, because even if you look last season, look at the amount of goals he's scored, 58 goals in the Premier League. Considering Rashford obviously scored a big bulk of those.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? The value of a player is only dependent on how desperate the team wants him, and obviously how desperate he wants to go to the team as well. And I think we've heard that he's a United fan. I don't know how true that is, but he definitely wanted to move to United exclusively, really. So the deal was pretty much agreed in terms of personal terms quite early on. It was just that fee that had to be narrowed down. And obviously Atalanta knew they had a real asset on their hands. He hasn't scored many goals in Serie A, and that's been used as a stick to beat him with, really, hasn't it? But when he burst on the international scene last year, his goals for Denmark were really impressive, and his mobility and his pace and explosion of kind of turn of pace when he moves is very reminiscent of Haaland, isn't it, in some ways? And exactly the kind of player United need.
I don't think it's that he's not scored enough goals. I think from what I saw from like minutes played, it's actually not a bad rate.
No, of course not.
That he's actually scored the amount of goals he's scored.
But when the fee's up there, you're going to look at it in a different way, aren't you? And if we had paid £50 million for him, we'd have been investing in potential, and you'd have seen that potential. So you kind of think, well, that's the going rate for an up-and-coming number 9, especially. Number 9's a really... it's really short of talent, I think, at the elite level for clubs like Manchester United to go and look for. So you do have to look for unproven talent. He's not yet proven, but it's clear to see what he can do, isn't it, Myles? You can see what he could bring to the Premier League, right?
You absolutely can. And like you say, buying potential is a smart thing that United should be doing in the market. They shouldn't be going to European clubs to buy young players that have already had a few seasons in there all the time, because that's how they end up overpaying. But that's what they're doing here. If they'd signed Højlund a year ago because of a good scouting network, they would have been paying pennies for him and would have had the same player. But United, for all they do right commercially on the business front, they're terrible at transfer dealings. We're talking about a club that have just spent nearly 60 million on a player in the last 12 months of his contract from Chelsea, who they kind of wanted rid of, wasn't part of their plans by the looks of things. They're now paying 70 million for someone who was outscored by Ademola Lookman in this Atalanta side last season. I just think it's not to say that I don't think Højlund will be an excellent player in the future, but spending that kind of fee right now is dangerous. It's risky because we don't know how well he'll adapt to the Premier League. He's still at an age where one big injury ruins his career and we don't really know what the best of him is, but it's a massive, massive outlier for a player that we're yet to see hit the heights of the players he's being compared to. I think it's going to be really dangerous for him that he's moving over to England with a huge price tag and obvious aesthetic comparisons to Erling Haaland, but not much else. You talk about play style, and I do agree with that because he's got a big frame, he's still very nimble, he's got explosive pace, he's definitely a finisher, but nowhere near the level that we saw Haaland at that age. And just because they're in Manchester, they're Scandinavian, kind of some similarities in their makeup, imagine coming to Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in the world, with that price tag at that age, being compared to a player that just broke the Premier League goal scoring record. And actually, there is nothing in your club career to suggest that you could match those heights yet.
I have to agree to an extent. I think that the fee adds that real unnecessary pressure, and the comparisons with Haaland don't help as well. The poor guy, he's too young for that, really. So, yeah, the fee does make me feel a little bit concerned for him more than anything.